Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time it is, wherever you are. My name is Adrienne M. Warren. I am the founder of Kindaris Pictures, the host of the Kindaris Pictures podcast, and host of the Kindaris Pictures YouTube channel. You are currently tuned into the second installment of Kindaris Pictures YouTube series for Black History Month. Race movie commentary. Very simple title I gave it. You are about to watch The Duke is Tops. This is a 1938 film produced by Million Dollar Productions, starring Ralph Cooper and Lena Horne. So we're not going to take too much longer. We're going to jump right into it. Here is The Duke is Tops with audio commentary by me. Hi everybody, this is Adrienne Warren, or Adrienne M. Warren. I am the founder of Kindaris Pictures, the host of the Kindaris Pictures podcast, and we are watching The Duke is Tops, released in 1938, produced by Million Dollar Productions. As you can see, starring Ralph Cooper. We'll talk about that a little bit more. Leo C. Popkin, that's a name you're going to see a lot when you watch race movies, indie films from the 1930s, 1940s. These other people I haven't quite researched yet, but I'm certain that they probably were heavily affiliated with the independent film circuit, I guess you could say. So this is the first movie that we will be watching, or that I'm providing commentary for Black History Month. So this is the first of 4 movies. So you see, music arranged by Phil Moore. That's somebody I am familiar with. Very popular arranger of music. Helped a lot of vocal artists or budding vocal artists find their voices and figure out their style. Help refine or help certain artists and entertainers get sophisticated, I guess you could say. Probably most notably worked with Dorothy Dandridge, Marilyn Monroe, Ava Gardner, a few other people. I didn't realize this is my first time actually seeing him in film credits, so that was kind of interesting to see. We've got our cast, a lot of people who were Michaud players or appeared in Oscar Michaud movies before, Lafayette players, Norman studio companies, Sepia Scandals. Okay, so we've got a touring show. I've only watched this movie 2 times before today. I think I was pretty young or a teenager when I watched it the first time, and then I watched it again a couple of years ago. So Ethel Andrews, this is a character that is being played by Lena Horne. As you can see, the chorus girls behind her, or pictured behind her, are all quite tall, tan, and terrific, per usual. So this is a stage show, vaudeville show, I guess you could say. I miss who this band was. I think it was the Basin Street Band. Pretty small, looked like a 4-piece band.
Calm down, Ethel. You're as nervous as a filly in her first race. Are you telling me?
Lena Horne, I believe this is Neva Peoples. A very familiar face in race movies. Those costumes look nice that the chorus girls are wearing.
Now the next time you're fired. All right, take your place.
Typical angry stage show producer.
These dames are getting away. Eating too regular. All the wrinkles are coming out.
Where's Sue?
Oh, he's on the other side. But you better hurry. It's about curtain time. You'll have to knock him dead tonight, honey.
We got Ralph Cooper, co-star. So I talked about this when we first started. I was just like, this is important. So when this movie was re-released, when Lena Horne became popular with MGM, when it was screened in theaters and on the marquee, her name was placed above his. So Ralph Cooper was one of the founders of $1 Million Productions. Went on to become the creator. I'm not certain if he was the creator, but absolutely the first host of Apollo's Amateur Night. So he definitely had a lot of experience in the entertainment field. Like, he was one of those people that you know for certain. Like, if you needed to get a job in New York entertainment, the New York theater, back in 1930s, 1940s, Ralph Cooper was probably the person who had the connections. You know, if you were a contestant on Amateur Night or at Amateur Night, he was the person that you wanted to meet backstage. I don't know if that even happened a lot, or if he was that person you could go to, or who was accessible, but I know if I were an aspiring actor or dancer or singer, I would definitely be trying to get to him. So one thing I noticed about this movie, in comparison to a lot of other race movies, the sound is a little off when they sing, but I don't know if it's just been restored or maintained very well, but it's like the quality is just a little bit better than other race movies I have seen. It looks like this looks like it could be a Hollywood movie, and the issue that happened with a lot of race movies back then is just they didn't have, or the producers, especially the black filmmakers like Oscar Micheaux, Spencer Williams, they didn't have the same resources as Hollywood producers, not even like the independent Hollywood producers. So the quality of the film, the aesthetic of it, the look of it just wasn't as good as other big budget Hollywood movies or low budget Hollywood movies.
Look, mate, how much do you pay that whole crew?
But this one was pretty good.
$1,500 a week guarantee? Surely not more. 6 months from now, she can make that much by herself. You're just a sentimental old fool.
Maybe so. But I've watched those kids grow up on this circuit. You gave up a promising stage career to push Ethel ahead. Oh, he's done a fine job of it, too. Next season, she'll be the biggest attraction we have.
Out here in the sticks, what'll it get her?
So we're getting a little setup of how well Ethel's career is going and how she's doing. How Duke has done a good job of promoting her. I kind of hate this dress. That flower kills it. So by this time, Lena Horne was a pretty popular nightclub singer in New York. A chorus girl before. I think her mom was a chorus girl as well. So this movie was released in 1938, but something about the way she's singing and the way she's standing on the stage and she's being presented, it looks very much like an early talkie. Because singers were, when sound films first came out and first started, singers were often presented a lot, or just singing in general, music in general. And this is kind of what that reminds me of.
You hear that voice? That's what they buy. I know you Did you? Wow! Listen to that applause. Come on, you two lovebirds.
Like he's so in love, so enamored with her.
Yeah?
All right, girls, in your place. Let's go.
Don't rip it.
God, he is
She's right.
rude.
And I have to make a change.
Like I said, stereotypical movie stage manager. Got a little tap dance. I believe this is Willie Covan. And another thing you see often in race movies, you'll have specialty acts, like random music numbers thrown in. First of all, a lot of race movies, especially in the late 30s, early 40s, or 1940s in general, were musicals or had a lot of musical segments and sequences. And then on top of that, the thing with Hollywood movies, especially in the 30s and 40s, mostly white cast, predominantly white cast, but then when it came to put some black people in it, their segments were always musical segments. So a lot of movies, Hollywood, independent, whatever the case may be, a lot of movies took advantage of the very specific, very cultural aspects of black musicianship, black entertainment. And I know it's a double-edged sword. Or on one hand, eventually you get tired of black people only being associated with music and knowing how to sing, knowing how to dance. But on the flip side, it's a very the style and the history it can't be duplicated.
My kind of a built-up, and she's in the bag. You can tag along if you want to.
Tag along? I don't think you understand, Mr. Marshall.
And it's always a sight to see.
Always hoped to be. I studied at her, taught her, brought out the best in her. It would be a great chance for her.
Chance? Why, it's the break of a lifetime. What's the talent getting her here?
I know all that, but I produced her show.
Producers are a dime a dozen in New York.
Well, I wouldn't be the first one to crash in. Why, I've heard
A lot of fairy tales. Ever been to New York?
no.
Then I'll tell you what it would be like. In and out of offices. Nothing today.
So the man on the right side that's talking now
Putting your head up against
is Monte Holly, I believe.
your heart out.
Monte. I'm sure it's not Monte, but again, another popular race movie actor.
Ethel Ann, the Browns Nightingale. A new style in form.
I think he played the villain in quite a few movies.
That, and I can get them all for. What can you do?
The show just broke, gentlemen. Tonight.
See, the thing is, I haven't heard anybody say anybody's name, so I can't remember who was who. And everybody looks so good. Like, even the extras, the audience members, dressed so nice.
Good house for the opening night.
Isn't she beautiful? Can she sing?
Why, she's a whole show.
Come on, it's late. Let's go.
So you got a little, this is where we start rolling in with, him seeing all the potential in Ethel and
It's a surprise from Duke. With his usual card.
making a decision. I'm trying to spoil it.
Ella, the Duke is top. He's giving me a chance to do a number next week, and I sure have been rehearsing hard. You've been holding out.
Throw in the movie title.
Better than that. Well, come on, let's see it. Well, here goes. Da, 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 da,
Yeah, Neva Peoples was absolutely
Ella.
a dancer. And it appears she's playing a little bit older than what she actually
I'm
was.
practically gone.
She was only a few years older than Lena Horne, I believe.
Duke, darling, what's the matter?
Oh, I guess I've been kind of selfish. Keeping you on this small-time stuff when you belong on Broadway.
Dear, you'll be a dreamer all your life, and I wouldn't have you different. But don't you know that if Broadway is for us, we'll get there?
Marshall, a talent scout for an Eastern booking circuit, has been watching you. He thinks you've got what it takes. Ethel, we show people live and strive for one goal, big stem. And when opportunity knocks, we've got to answer. It's your chance, kid. Take it.
Without you, Duke.
Don't say it, honey. I'll never tell you anything that isn't right. Because, well, you...
I'm kind of giggling at the way he's delivering his lines. So it's so monotone a bit.
Here are the reports, Mr. Mason.
Thanks.
Now I am curious to know what that was.
Hi, Mr. Mason.
It almost looked like a time punch,
Broke the season's house record.
like a time card punch, but I don't think it was.
How about Ethel? Have you made up your mind, Jeff?
Sure, but she hasn't made up hers. I've been arguing with her for the past 2 weeks. She just laughs at the idea of our splitting. Says it's ridiculous.
Sometimes the surgeon has to cut deep and hurt, but it's for the patient's good.
Very long. Oh, and I assume the nightclub owner or the theater owner that he was just speaking to is played by Vernon McCalla. Not someone I'm familiar with. Don't recall seeing him in anything else other than this.
Publicity, glamour, gay.
Sometimes the surgeon has to cut deep and hurt, but it's for the patient's good.
I'm trying to look at that ashtray. No, that's not an ashtray. That's something else. So we got a little signature forging going on.
Glad Duke said.
Oh no. He's signing that check to somebody. To See, that shows you how often I write checks. The first thing I thought, like, oh, he's forging his signature.
But I just couldn't stand it.
You couldn't stand it. Suppose you think of me for a change. Remember that?
Our contract.
Now listen, Ethel, I've tried to reason with you for the past 2 weeks. Tried to be kind. But you wouldn't listen. Now I'll tell you something. I can make myself a piece of money out of that. Here, take a look.
$5,000.
Sure, I can cash in on this contract, and I need the dough.
That's all I mean to you. Dollars and cents. I don't think I ever knew you until now. Last
Oh, so he did forge that signature. I don't know.
Here, you forget my part of the contract. Now you can collect.
Well, I'm glad you decided to be sensible. I'll be seeing you sometime. Lots of luck.
Oh. So it's interesting that Lena Horne was somewhat discovered by Hollywood through this movie. You know, obviously for her singing, and then, you know, she gives a good dramatic performance. But then, of course, it's like MGM signed her, or these movie companies became interested in her, but then didn't know what to do with her.
And she never
It's always funny how that works out.
till now.
Like, let's seek out these black entertainers, these entertainers of color. But then, of course, that goes along with the issue of music, like African Americans only being tied to musical performances, musical numbers, dance numbers, and things. So you could very well say that MGM and really only like saw Lena Horner, just like, okay, this is going to be the black singing star. They probably very well had no intention of putting her in any dramatic roles at all. So dramatic. So as opposed to throwing it away, just just throw it on the ground.
Great guy. But I'm not going to let you get away with this.
It's the best thing for her, Al.
Best thing, I'm going right back and tell her the truth.
Listen, Ella. You've got to promise not to say a word. Because, well, you remember.
Remember what? I always wonder what happens to stuff like this. Like, this is obviously, fake, and they put it together specifically for the movie, but what did they do with this? Did they throw it away? Does somebody have it somewhere? In somebody's basement? Was it in somebody's basement for like 30, 40, 50 years, and then somebody finally threw it away?
Come in. Where do you go next week? Say, you play the last half of this one at Athens, and that's a season's work these days.
Theatrical Owners Booking Association. Okay. So
Remember me?
there was an actual vaudeville theater association with that name, Toba. And I wonder what kind of affiliation they had with this movie. If it's supposed to be the same thing, or
Nothing for you. I guess you heard that before. Anyway, in case you don't know it, Waterville's as dead as the last year's woman's past. About all I'm looking for.
I know black entertainers gave it the nickname "Tough on Black Asses."
Right up my alley.
And the alley's so full of producers, the health department's kicking. Say, I do remember you.
So Toba, Theater Owners Booking Association, was just obviously a booking association, but specifically for African American entertainers on the theater, on the stage, in vaudeville. Oh, okay. And of course, as was often the case, most of the owners were white people. But it was established by Sherman H. Dudley, and I am aware of him because, first of all, I do believe he was also an actor, but he also helped create some of the first I keep sliding away from my mic. He also helped establish the first black movie theater. So the vaudeville houses, yes, the vaudeville houses that would eventually become movie theaters that screened race movies and movies in general, specifically for African American audiences. These were theaters that were placed in African American neighborhoods. So Sherman Dudley had a hand in establishing these theaters first as vaudeville houses, and eventually when they would become movie theaters.
There you are, Mr. Mason. A brand new show. I just finished writing it.
I hope you've got something here, my boy.
It's a wow. It's got everything.
That's a very short script.
No. But look, I can use my old people. They know my work, and I know what they can do. Of course, you'll have to stake me. I'm broke.
If you're as good as you used to be, we'll manage to put on your show.
Let's see if I can recognize any of these dancers.
That's swell, kid.
If we'll see their faces.
10 o'clock in the morning.
Wait a minute. And that don't mean...
Okay, so we won't get the chance.
5 after. It means 10. All right, Sizzlefoot.
How's it shaping up to you, Sam?
It's a lily. But Duke, you always put on good shows.
I hope so.
No. So we got some bad reviews for the show now.
You don't have to say it, Mr. Mason. I know. The show did a nosedive. Breaks of our game, my boy.
Yeah, see the back of his jacket. I know I hate it.
Well, I can doctor up this show in 2 shakes of a pawnbroker's head.
I'm sorry, Duke, but my bankroll just can't stand any more strain.
Well, that's that. Anyway, thanks for giving me a break. I'm sorry. Sorry for the flop.
Forget it, Duke.
What did the boss say? Ah, Duke. We'll show him. This ain't the only circuit.
No, Sam. Get yourself a job. You can handle a stage better than any man I know.
I ain't gonna leave you.
Okay, so the stage manager's name, I kept calling him the producer, stage manager. Right here, his name is Charles Hawkins. That's the actor's name. Also someone I'm not quite familiar with. I can't recall if I've seen him anywhere else before. And another thing I'm noticing, I'm going to refer back to when I mentioned Lena Horne's, when she was singing on stage, it kind of was reminiscent of when talkies first started, and you had a lot of these features with solo singers, you know, singing alone, singing to the camera and all that, almost like a radio show in a way, or a radio performance. Another thing that I should mention about race movies is sometimes when you will watch them, especially ones like this, the look of it, the style of it was kind of behind what Hollywood was doing. And when I say that, I mean this. When you look at this, The Duke is Tops, it's released in 1938, but it has a very early 1930s, late 1920s look to it. And again, that's the quality of the resources. Oh God, I don't like the back of that jacket at all. And then if you watch movies from let's take Oscar Michaud's movies, like Within Our Gates and The Symbol of the Unconquered. Those movies came out in 1920, but they still had a very 1910s look to it. And not just as far as fashion, because it was 1920, so that was like the very first year of the change, before we get into the flapper look and everything. But just the film itself, the way it was shot, the quality of the film, the style of it, I guess you could say, had a very late 1900s, early 1910s look to it. Whereas if you look at Hollywood movies, this is the time that we're getting into the quality is changing. The quality is a little bit better, and you can tell the resources used are different, or there's more resources available that African American filmmakers weren't quite, or didn't quite have access to yet.
Duke, how about making that order double? Sure.
So this is Lawrence Croner.
Keep my eggs honest, looking me in the face.
Lawrence Croner, he was another popular actor in Oscar Michaud movies. Very much a character actor, because he has played villains. This character is somewhat of a change of pace for him. You can tell off top he's quite comical. Kind of got that sneaky, oh, I'm up to something edge going on. Ham and eggs, 35 cents. Good old days.
Duke, 1,000 thanks. Perhaps you will accept a slight return for your hospitality.
That's all right, Doc. You know you're welcome.
So Lawrence Kreiner, he appeared,
Well, now
like I said, in some Oscar Michaud movies, but definitely in a lot of $1 million productions, movies with Ralph Cooper.
Have you the time?
And also in some independent Hollywood productions. And I should also mention that a lot of the race movie productions, those made by black filmmakers, and again, there were some white filmmakers who also produced and created race movies as well. But these particular movies were made on the East Coast, in the East Coast, New York based, Chicago. Oscar Michaud, he was pretty much everywhere, but he was mostly Chicago based. And at one point, he filmed The Symbol of the Unconquered, I believe, in the West, in North Dakota, South Dakota, somewhere. I know he lived out there at some point.
Here's 15 cents. Here, go and get yourself a good meal.
But then you had some movies that were independent. They were race movies, but they were filmed in Hollywood. And not Oscar Michaud, Lawrence Kreiner, he eventually did a few of those movies as well in Los Angeles.
Nothing like having a place of your own, is it? Ah, home sweet home. Sit down, dude. Sit down. Ow! Get thee from behind me, Satan. The financial stringency does exist. In fact,
I'm sure people who don't like cats would agree. I'm not one of those people. But I found that when people don't like cats, they really don't like cats.
Only a very, very small matter separates me from a cool million.
I'm really enjoying seeing him in this.
$15.
Listen, Doc. cut out
Definitely
the
an unsung character
Put you behind
actor.
the eight ball.
Well, now the wholesale house is cut off my credit, and business
Has been rotten.
exactly. The suckers, that is, the customers, don't fall like they used to.
Uh-huh. Still giving them that same old spiel and expect them to form a line with their money in their hand.
Well, now, I guess that's about it. But it's a good spiel. It always was.
That's out now. What you've got to do is entertain them. Give them something for nothing.
No, dude.
Listening to him talk, he's reminding me of some of my family members,
Elucidate.
What you
older
need is
family members
showmanship, and that
from the
means
country.
Duke Davis. I'll bring your show up to the minute. How about it?
Son, we're partners. 50-50. This speaks of brighter and better days for old Doc Durando.
First of all, I talk about the customers. Forget the medicine. Something like this. Ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure to announce the return of famous Dr. Durando to your thriving community. He brings you the benefits of a lifelong dedication to the study of the alleviation
Good
of
old
human
medicine
suffering.
shows.
The doctor's happiness, naturally, is your happiness.
See, it's stuff like this, you know, you don't, but I'm not going to say I don't miss it because I wasn't around when people were doing stuff like this. But there was so much theater to just mundane things back in the day.
I've got a powerful misery in my left shoulder.
Like they're obviously, you know, lying to people and all of that, but it was such theater. Like even with early television commercials,
Thank you.
like the fact that the commercials and the product were tied into the show or sponsored by the show, or certain product sponsored television shows, and then they had the advertisements, they had the actors on the show
Professor Dr.
promoting the products. That it just seemed so fun.
Professor.
Like really, like prime peak salesmanship. Like, he's got a whole show going and everything. Like, this is like hustling. Like I said, even though it's like, you know, they're promoting one of those products that just was not a miracle product like they were saying it were, or it was just like water with a few minerals or something in it, but people made their money.
Business is going to be good.
Sheriff, I ain't gonna stand for it. Them fellas take all the money out of town.
I don't see what I can do about it, Lige. He's paid his license.
Alright, so he's a sheriff. I have no clue who this actor is, but he's somebody that I know I have seen before. So I'm about to look him up. He almost looked like Oscar Michel when he was walking. I keep calling him Michel. His name was Oscar Michel. Or that's how it was pronounced. Or how he pronounced it. But he looked like him a little bit when he came up. So he's a sheriff. Let's check him out.
Good day. Sheriff, ain't the inch big. Gotta be arms free.
Your sappy's fixed. Very well, Your Highness. The prince hopes that you will all get what is coming.
I think that was pig lagging.
Sure we get what's coming to us.
Have no fear. There'll be plenty for all. And now let me tell you of
Okay,
wonderful
Everett
mix of
Brown
sound
is
and
his
prayers
name.
gathered from the ends of the earth.
Joel Llewellyn is in
Uniting
here
waste of the
somewhere.
polar regions, the blazing heat of the Sahara Desert, regardless of cause.
He's going to be a customer.
I don't believe a word. Come on, Sheriff, I'll show them.
Those are strong words, sir. Are you prepared to back him up?
I sure am. As a respectable druggist,
Ah, just as I thought. Friend, this man sells you a bottle of medicine, charges you $1. Maybe he cures you, and maybe he doesn't.
Tain't so. I know this stuff ain't no good.
You hold your lip line.
That's Amanda Randolph.
I drunk 2 bottles of your medicine.
No,
for my
Lillian.
sciatica, and I'm paining yet.
That wasn't for drinking. It was for rubbing.
It's funny recognizing these people now. Lillian Randolph, another unsung entertainer, played in everything. You probably recognize her from It's a Wonderful Life. She was the maid in that movie. She appeared in a bunch of movies and television shows.
Hold on a minute. Will that there stuff grow hair?
Grow hair, sir? I'm glad you brought that up. I asked you to look at the good doctor and notice that luxuriant growth of hair. 4 years ago, the doctor fell ill.
The druggist's name is Arthur Ray. I'm not familiar with him. So let me see what Everett Brown played in. Because like I said, as soon as I saw him, I recognized him. Gone with the Wind. That's probably it.
Doctor, show them what Universal Elixir has done for you.
I knew it. It's a fake. Now, Sheriff, do your duty.
I'll give you just 5 minutes to be 1 mile out of town.
Doctor, we're leaving. So I anticipated. Joe.
So they almost had their product. They almost had their hustle going. All right, so we probably recognize. Okay, Everett Brown was in King Kong. Unfortunately, he was in an ape costume, of course. He was in a few Tarzan movies. 1935 version of a Les Miserables. A bunch of Tarzan movies. A few other $1 million productions. Nothing Sacred. He was a policeman in that, and Carol Lombard is in there, isn't she? Yeah, that's a Carol Lombard movie. He played a policeman. That's interesting.
Smells like the coffee's ready. Now for
But he was Big Sam in Gone with the Wind, so that's what I recognize him from. And then another thing with race movies, they were often usually set in New York, Harlem.
Joe, here's a good spot to turn off the
Probably, even when they were filmed in Chicago, they were probably set in Harlem.
Looks kind of rough to me.
Yes, but I ain't taking no chance.
And, or the South. Mm. Oh, this is dramatic. This is so dramatic. And of course, as soon as the fire started, then the truck stopped doing all that. Lord. Oh my God.
Get out of here. Let's get out of here. Come on. Come on.
So at some point, this becomes a comedy.
Some christening, Doc. Through fire and water. We can't fail now.
Romance should keep it bittersweet. That's
I'm gonna keep it a buck with y'all. I really don't like the dresses they put Lena on. They're all so frumpy. It's like the same style, but then it's like they glam it up with a few details, but it's like it doesn't help. But look, we're not here to talk about the fashions. We're just talking about the movie.
You're right. Gotta have
with sad melody. True love.
So then another positive thing about race movies, or that we saw in race movies, was that pretty much like every character for the most part was black. Some movies had white actors in it, but these movies we got to see, or African American audiences got to see themselves in various positions. They could be singers, dancers, they were lawyers, they were gangsters, they were doctors, millionaires, they were tycoons. Like, that was to me the highlight of these movies. Like I said, they probably didn't have the greatest quality, they probably didn't have the greatest amount of resources available to make it, but the representation for the most part was pretty good. Still had a few problems with colorism, but generally speaking, like I said, we got lawyers, black people were lawyers, doctors, dancers, singers, tycoons, gangsters, maids. Maids to black families, butlers. Basically, there was a representation of lower class, middle class, and upper class black people in these movies. Whereas if you went to Hollywood, lower class is pretty much as high as you were going to get, or as high as your character was going to get. And that's the same audience from the from the first show, from Duke's show. Oh, Variety. Bronze Nightingale Wilde's Blase. Broadway producer Ethel Andrews signs for a Century Club appearance.
Atta girl, Ethel. I knew you'd do it.
And I like seeing stuff like that, like the medicine shows and the traveling medicine shows that you see in movies anyway, and television shows. I like watching that because I would not mind live. Well, I wouldn't want to sell medicine, but that's the kind of life that makes you want to live it, or kind of scenes that make you want to live in an RV.
The kerosene from the lamp is leaking and is liable to get on your clothes. Friends, I'm here to introduce Dr. Durando's Universal Elixir. The average adult, by adult I mean a person who has stopped growing at both ends and started in the middle. The minute a man like that gets sick, he runs to a doctor. And the doctor tells him, which reminds me, I had a patient come to me, a little fellow with a glass eye. He didn't tell me it was a glass eye, of course. It happened to come out during the conversation. Aha, you see it. He didn't. Anyway,
And referring back to colorism a little bit, something I am noticing in this movie is you do see, unlike a few other movies, you do see a variety of skin tones among people in this movie, especially women, because it's more difficult spotting out with women.
You feel so rotten in the morning.
I don't know you, my friend, but I think you show poor taste to laugh at so serious a subject.
See older women,
This man finally came to us, and Dr.
women of different sizes, people of different sizes, people of different ages, all black. But you know, as Tiffany New York Pilot said, we're standing in it in all shades. The chorus girls might be a different story, but extras and other performers, secondary performers and characters, they definitely worked it out.
Now, before I go on with my talk, I have a treat for you. I should like to introduce the Durando and Davis world-famous quartet, the Cats and the Fiddle. Come along and swing it for them, boys.
Cats and the Fiddle. I've seen them in quite a few movies. They are good. They make these weird faces. Especially the shorter guy, I think he's probably going to be the one that makes the strange faces. I can't remember. They were in some soundies, movies, musical sequences in movies. Another unsung group. Precursor to, well, I wouldn't say precursor to, probably in the same school as the Mills Brothers and the Ink Spots and the Brown Dots. Those were the trailblazers for people like the Temptations and Four Tops and the doo-wop groups of the 50s more so. I believe they were also in Stormy Weather. I think. Definitely showmen. I've seen Kool and the Gang do things like that. Not exactly that particular move, but the whole, taking advantage of the stage and utilizing each other, utilizing your bandmates to like really put on a show and a performance, like the Nicholas Brothers. See, I'm so glad I have a new microphone, because if I had my old one, y'all would be able to hear me dancing. They're really doing a lot with these instruments. It almost makes me feel like they're not really playing, but I know they are, because I can tell they're hitting the notes. The bass player, the cello player, bass fiddle, whatever that is, the big one, definitely doesn't look like he's playing for real.
You telling me?
And now for the real treat of the evening. It gives me a great deal of pleasure to introduce.
So you notice this whole segment is a big chunk of the movie.
Himself in person, Dr. Durando.
Because I think, I'm kind of making assumptions with this, I think a lot of the filmmakers of these movies, black or white, were well aware that they didn't have the resources to make the kind of dramatic movie, like an Oscar-worthy, Golden Globe. I mean, Oscar at this time, Oscar-worthy. They knew they didn't have the resources to make those kind of movies, so that's where the music came in. Like, okay, we have to make sure we keep our audiences engaged. So they almost kind of had to throw in these musical segments. And then also the lack of resources, the lack of money didn't allow them room to make mistakes. So a lot of these movies were shot one time. Like there was no retakes or anything like that. So they didn't get to do the heavy stuff that other film companies could afford to do. And that's kind of why I hate when people talk about race movies and talk about how terrible they were, and people don't take those things into account. Wasn't she at the other medicine show? Is she following them around? Yeah, people don't take that stuff into consideration when they think of race movies. Before they call it bad, they don't,
You won't all be able to get a bottle. We haven't got them.
Ouch, my corn.
Give a bottle to the lady with the corn. I said give. It's free, madam. Now, I tell you what I'm going to do. When I ring this bell, the sale will stop. When I ring it again, the sale will stop. Not another bottle will be sold.
All right, folks, have your dollars ready. All right, here you are. Here's your neutralizer in the Eastern and Chestnut. Take your time now, folks.
He's too old, but he looks like Bookman from Good Times. But I know it's not him.
Those who suffer from indigestion, gas, sour stomach, cramps, sciatica, lumbago, rheumatism, gout, swollen joints, mumps, dandruff, fallen arches, or if any of your family or livestock are sick, Universal Elixir will cure them. I don't care what the matter is.
So that looks like cures all of those things.
Bigger into those old bodies of yours.
Come here, two bottles.
Like, what does fallen arches have to do with
No dippy.
stomach aches?
Only one bottle of this precious elixir to a person. Now, folks, time's up.
Say, give me a bottle. All right, folks, always willing to be right with you. Say, I've already bought that bottle. Had my money out and everything.
I'm sorry, neighbor.
That's Joel Fluellen. I've been waiting to see him too.
Came on purpose to get a bottle of medicine. Come on, Doc, let me have a bottle.
I don't think I've ever seen him that young. So Joel Fluellen, actor. I don't believe he sang. I can't recall at the moment, but he was. I'm trying to compare him to somebody today. He was one of those black entertainers, Los Angeles entertainers who had, and it's funny because this is a New York-based movie. But he's one of those actors that was always working, pretty much. I guess you could kind of, in a way, work-wise, career-wise, he was somewhat of the, I want to say Jennifer Lewis.
Don't miss this wonderful opportunity. You'll never
Clifton Powell. Let's say that he was as far as his career goes, he was like the Clifton Powell of his generation. And not necessarily in terms of him playing the villain and everything, but he was just that person who was always in a movie. You would always see his face. You might not remember his name. You probably would, probably wouldn't, but he was that man. But outside of Hollywood, outside of the movies, he was also a socialite. I'll just say that. He was a socialite as well. He was friends with a lot of people. He was very close to Dorothy Dandridge. He was that person that threw parties. I guess you could say off the screen, he was like the Diddy of his generation as well. Probably not as rich, but definitely let's say this, he was like, outside of movies, outside of his work, he kind of had like a blogger pool, I guess you could say, and a journalist pool where he had the good parties. Socialite. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Socialite,
From the hotspot buyer spotter.
a confidant to many people. He was the Bone character. if you watch Real Housewives of Atlanta, you kind of know what I mean by that.
Presentation of a new review.
Excuse me. He was that guy that knew everybody's business.
Who still wobbles a 12-pair of pipes, but is nixed when it comes to filling the heavy spot on the Broadway biggie. Some of the blame, or maybe all of it, pins on Fenton for trying to rush a gal from sticks to steeples in a few weeks. And one marshal, who authorized this one, should be forced to eat raw the egg.
Look, Mr. Fenton, I can dope this show. Not on my money. I must have been doped when I let you talk me into it. That girl's a specialty, not a star.
So now we've reached the point where Ethel, we kind of hear that the show that she's in is not doing well. I like that radio.
I remember, and I'm thinking about what variety will do to me now.
I don't think I've seen quite a few antique radios, but I don't think I've ever seen any that look like that.
Back to the sticks. I'm through.
Yeah, Joe Llewellyn was just that guy who knew everybody's business
Bottomless.
and was friend to everybody.
Don Durando's wonderful discovery is headed for a drain pipe instead of strain tripe. And all because of that devilish device. That broadcasting apparatus. Well, I've a mind to bust that.
You understand, Doc, don't you?
Say, Duke, can I drive you down to the station?
No, Dippy, thanks. I'd rather walk. I want to be by myself. Well, so long, fellas.
So his name is Dippy. Dippy is played by Johnny Taylor. I'm not familiar with him. I'm going to assume that the other guy is Joe.
South? No. We're moving to another apartment. We can't afford all this now. A fortune teller told me once that I was a cyclist. A what? Somebody who can see things that some people can't. Oh, you mean a psychic? That's it, a cyclist. Well, I've been having notions about somebody down south, and I'm trying to forget the south. You're kidding yourself, honey. Anyway, Duke's down there, and I've got a hunch he's in trouble. Maybe he's broke. Not much. You're forgetting a little matter of $5,000 he sold me for. Now you listen to me. I've been hiding a lie, and it's time somebody came clean. If Duke won't, I will. And I don't want to hear anything about it. You're going to hear what I've got to say, and it's all about him. Duke Davis double-crossed himself for you. He wrote that $5,000 check and didn't take a dime from Marshall. He thought he was standing in your way. Alice, we're not moving. We're sending the trunks to Pennsylvania Station. We're heading south. There's the baggage smasher.
There was a quick change of mind.
Gosh, maybe I am a cyclist. We were just talking about you.
Well,
Oh my God.
am I invited in?
Duke, I just found out what you did for me.
So something else that we see, I won't say a lot in race movies, but let's say generally speaking in black cinema, no matter where it came from, who made it, something that we saw quite a bit was connection to spiritualism and psychics and
Here's another bit of news from a local hotspot.
a lot of movies with fortune tellers. You saw it in psychics, fortune tellers, empaths, Ease Bayou, Carmen Jones.
The medicine is said to be novel ideas and
There are a few other movies. You know, if a character didn't necessarily go to a psychic or empath or a priestess of some sort, it was kind of hinted at. There was a use of playing cards, card reading. The Devil's Daughters had mention of hoodoo, voodoo connections to that, and that's something that's kind of in some movies it's kind of presented as something evil. In a lot of Hollywood movies it is, especially when it comes to black characters like in King Kong. It was kind of warped. Traditional religions and practices were kind of warped to be something evil. Rarely in race movies, but it was something that was kind of woven into quite a few of these movies, and we just saw that mentioned, kind of touched on just now.
With a tune you can sing, a song in everything. Harlem is harmony. Harlem is living good.
Songs about Harlem. That was heard a lot in race movies, and recently in modern film, modern black cinema, that seemed to be the destination for a lot of African American characters in movies set in the 30s and the 40s. Malcolm X, the Savoy, or Jumping at the Savoy. Harlem is I'll say a few Spike Lee movies. Well, New York for him, but in a lot of period pieces with black characters, a predominantly black cast, Harlem seems to be a centerpiece or almost an extra character in these movies. And that was the case in race movies. A lot of those movies even had Harlem in the title. Even in Malcolm X, if you're familiar with that movie, one of the songs on the soundtrack is Drop Me Off in Harlem, sung by Ella Fitzgerald. But what's interesting about this movie, and probably a few others, some race movies presented Harlem as somewhat of a den, a city of sin. It was sometimes the centerpiece. Urban centers in general, but Harlem mostly. You would have these movies where characters were split, their lives were split between the South and the North, usually Harlem versus some random city, town, country in a random city or town in the South. And Harlem was sometimes presented as, the place that you didn't necessarily want to go. Oh, it looks fun. You can get money here, but it could lead you down the wrong path, etc., etc. And then the character kind of goes back down south to live. Who wants to do that in the 1930s? I don't know. But this is one of those movies that praises Harlem. And we see Ralph Cooper showing off another one of his skills. Band leader. Another one of his jobs. So Ralph Cooper was the host of the Amateur Night. He was a writer, a producer, a band leader, a dancer himself. I think I just spotted a white face in the audience. Or a very light brown face. And I think this is Willie Covan again. I don't think so. I think this is someone else. Marie Bryant is in this movie. Louise Franklin is one of the chorus girls, and I'm usually able to spot her. She sang with the Duke Ellington Band a few times, and she appeared in a few Hollywood movies. She was in Bright Road with Dorothy Dandridge. She was one of the teachers. I think she was a chorus girl in Stormy Weather. You see, if I looked at the chorus girls, I'm certain I would be able to spot her out. And Marie Bryant, she might be a solo performer in this movie, because she was a solo performer in general. But I don't remember seeing her quite yet. Got a good view of the audience. I love those chairs. Interesting editing. They're putting the camera on the audience quite a bit. I am unfamiliar with this band. I know it's not the Cats and the Fiddle, but they kind of have that same feel. This actually might be the Basin Street Boys. And the band in the beginning of the movie that I mentioned might be the Basin Street Boys. I think that was actually the swing band Harlemania Orchestra. Let's get a look. Okay, I think these are the Basin Street Boys. Four-piece vocal group formed in 1945. Okay. What? I'm confused. This movie came out in 1938, but the Basin Street Boys weren't formed until 1945. I guess Google could very well be wrong. Maybe they didn't start recording until 1945. But I'm almost certain that that's who that was. Okay, so now we see Ralph Cooper the dancer. Something about this is awkward. Like, it almost looks like they probably rehearsed this in a room that's completely different from this one. And they need to figure out the space, but they didn't get time to do that. I think this is Marie Bryant. I gotta see her face. Yeah, that's her. So Marie Bryant was obviously a dancer. She appeared in quite a few soundies, feature-length movies. She died pretty young. She was 58 when she died. She had cancer. She was a teacher at Katherine Dunham's dance school, Eugene Loring. She taught dance to some Hollywood actors like Gene Kelly, Debbie Reynolds, Sid Charisse, Ava Gardner, Betty Grable. Dance coach and choreographer at Paramount, 20th Century Fox, MGM, and Columbia. Definitely someone that doesn't get a lot of credit and a lot of praise. Yeah, I immediately recognized her when she smiled. I first saw her, well, I kind of knew about her. I created a blog on Tumblr called Classic Ladies of Color. It's been in operation for a while. I guess it's been about 7 years, or it will be 7 years this year. And I posted a few pictures of her, but I hadn't seen her dancing. But the first time I saw her dance was, or perform, was in a soundy short musical called Jammin' the Blues. And I think it was actually rediscovered or kind of went viral for the first time in a long time, a couple of years ago. Oh, thank God, she's in a different dress, a different style of dress. I like her hair.
Chances are we'll get what we're deserving. We will be the top. Just wait and see. I know you remember all I've told you. We'll see our dreams through. You remember. We'll work hard together.
The cameraman's fascination with this audience is hilarious.
She certainly needed Duke. Yes, and he needed her.
Okay, the man on the right side that says she certainly needed Duke, I believe that is Edward Thompson. I know he's in the movie, and I've been waiting to see him this whole time, but I didn't recognize him. But I think that's him. So Edward Thompson is Lafayette player, appeared in Oscar Michaud movies, was married to Evelyn Prier, did other comedies, short films, theater actor, of course. And yeah, he performed. His wife Evelyn Prier, she starred in Within Our Gates and one other Oscar Michaud movie. And he continued working in movies after she passed away. Because a lot of the Michaud actors, the early ones, and the Lafayette players, their film career kind of lasted into the 30s. And I think after that, they kind of fell off a little bit. Returned to the stage or stayed on the stage. But Edward Thompson, he continued well into the 1940s. As far as a screen acting career went. I think Louise Franklin is on the end, on the left end. You can't see her now, I think. Would not be surprised if Marie Bryant did the choreography for this movie. So everybody's coming on out. side, got the classic movie ending, kiss at the end, $1 Billion Productions logo, American Eagle. So guys, thank you so much for tuning in to this movie and listening to my commentary. I hope you enjoyed. So The Duke is Tops is in the public domain, like a lot of race movies. You can watch it on YouTube, Daily Motion probably, the Internet Archive for free, wherever or whatever video platform you use to watch movies. It is available for free or at an affordable price on DVD and Blu-ray as well. So again, thank you so much for tuning in to this this particular installment of the Race Movie Commentary series. I will catch you all next week when I provide commentary for The Devil's Daughters.